Hi there, and welcome to Mondays with Mike. It's Monday, and I'm Mike, and so that's why the show is called what it is. I hope you all had a great weekend. I know it was a bit of a mixed bag, kind of a blustery Sunday. Today, though, looks amazing. In fact, it's so nice out. I said, I'm going to go outside. It's one of the rare circumstances that I had enough of a break in my day to go somewhere else. So that's why I'm out here. This is our atrium, by the way. Um, We used to come out here for the morning news, and then, I don't know, I think they forgot it existed. Maybe we'll come back to it at some point. I don't know. So there's a few things that I wanted to talk about today. The first and foremost, number one thing that's going to be on everybody's mind is allergy season, and the fact that everything's exploding right now, as it often does when we get towards springtime. Of course, the first day of spring is still 11 days away. But we're in meteorological spring, and obviously we've started to warm up a lot. So I've put myself under this tree. I believe that is an oak tree. And that's going to be, is going to be just yellow, the Houston yellow gunk everywhere here over the next few weeks as we're now seeing oak pollen season really ramp up. So we got that to talk about. I'm going to tell you all about the lunar eclipse later on this week, when and how you can see that. We're also going to talk about severe weather chances across Texas and maybe even potentially around here coming up later on this week. But I wanted to start with something that's not directly related to weather necessarily, but it could be. And this has to do with videos like this. Have you seen these? They seem to be absolutely everywhere now. Every time I go to my Instagram stories, or sometimes when I venture onto TikTok, which I don't do as much, but Instagram, I've even seen it on Facebook. You see these videos of, it's always like a fisherman or people on a ship, sailors or something, or, just some kindly old gentleman helping a whale get the barnacles off of his back. When have you ever in your life, first of all, heard of that happening? I mean, unless somebody's a marine biologist. Whales don't usually just come up to a boat and let you pet them and let you remove barnacles from their back. So here's the deal. These videos are fake. They're made using artificial intelligence, AI, and it's scary because if you go through, I mean, look, I'll be honest with you. The first one that I saw was pretty convincing. Some of the other ones you'll see out there are much more obviously fake, although I still think they'd fool a lot of people. The first one I saw, I thought, gosh, that's really kind of interesting. And I thought maybe it was part of marine biologists. They were helping out the whales because they had some sort of parasite on them or something. I don't know what I thought, but I did sort of fall for it at first. And it was only when I started seeing different versions of the same basic thing, but with different people. And sometimes the barnacles just fall off, a lot easier. It doesn't make any sense because then if the whale just swam, they'd all fall off. I don't know. But anyway, after seeing a few of those, I'm like, okay, this is obviously BS. But the concerning part for me, as somebody in the scientific community, is that many, many, many people completely believe it. And you can see it by the number of likes that these videos get, and also by the comments. If you go to the comment section, people will say things like, oh, how wonderful that humans are helping animals, or finally, for once, we're helping the whales instead of hurting them, or, along those lines kind of things. Like, oh, it's so beautiful, heart, heart, heart emoji, something like that. And, which is fine because this is sort of benign enough. People apparently taking barnacles off the back of whales, which apparently is a bigger thing than we ever knew. But it doesn't have to be that. That's what it was this time. We have seen in previous hurricane seasons or severe weather seasons, that somebody will post a picture of a bunch of giant twisters, I don't know, 10 twisters coming down, and they'll say, look what happened in Kansas or whatever. And then it'll get shared a million times, or a bunch of times, and everybody sort of takes it as being true when it obviously isn't, because that just doesn't happen. You remember after hurricanes, it might have even gone as far back as Katrina, where there was a video of like a shark, swimming down the street kind of thing. It was sort of dubious origin. And even that was sort of like semi-believable, because it seems like maybe that could happen. But with the technology becoming what it is, and I love AI. I'm so into ChatGPT. I love ChatGPT. I use it for almost everything. I used it in our weather department for our weather graphics system last week. I was sitting down with Allison. I digress. And we had to fix something. There was something I wanted to fix on one of our graphics with the day of the week. I wanted it to be formatted a certain way. And I couldn't figure out how to do it. And it was like, well, we can call tech support, yeah. But you know what? I'm going to ask ChatGPT. It was written in a Python computer code, which I don't really know that much. I don't know enough to fix what I wanted to fix. And so I typed it into ChatGPT. The first time it didn't get it right. I said, try again, please. The second time, perfect. So AI is amazing. But it can be a force for good, but it also is a force potentially for evil. So, when you're talking about the barnacle off the whale thing, that's fine. What if it was a world leader saying something or doing something that offends the other side? What if it's, it could be anything, right? You just think of the worst possible thing. If somebody made an AI video of me, fake video of me doing something, it could ruin somebody's life, right? Because by the time the video makes the rounds, just like the barnacles on the back of the whale thing, you've already had it shared tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of times. It's already reached millions of people around the world. And you wonder, like, does anybody go back and ever find out, like, oh, that was fake? I bet you a large proportion of them don't. So my advice, and I tell this to just anybody who maybe isn't as up to speed on what's happening in the world of technology and image creation, and now moving image creation, is be skeptical of almost everything that you see on social media. I would be skeptical. I'm seriously, almost anything. Every story you have to look at and see, okay, if there's a man who's scraping parasites off the back of a whale, who posted it? Okay, was this posted by the marine biology department of Texas A&M University? Okay, that's a story, right? But if it was just posted by some guy who has some account where he posts viral videos, you really have to take that with a grain of salt, a huge grain of salt. And unfortunately, we're going to have to all do this as the technology keeps getting better and more believable and crisper and all that stuff. It's just going to be harder and harder to tell the difference between what's real and what isn't real. So I hope the social media companies will step up and maybe recognize AI content, or maybe force the creators to put a watermark on there or something that says AI. I don't know. You tell me. You tell me what you think. All right, let's move on to allergy season. We're already hearing people sneeze. The people in the newsroom are sneezing. Everybody's, walking outside, sneezing and coughing and all that. I know that in my family, I happen to be very, very lucky that I don't really have allergies to almost anything. I did take a trip one time to Tennessee when I was a kid, and whatever was there drove me nuts. I don't think it's here because I've never felt it that way, like hay fever kind of thing. But a lot of you may be bothered by it. So here's the deal. So in Texas, we have year-round allergies. There are some seasons where it dips down, like the dead of winter, really, really cold, that cuts off ragweed. If we're dry, it kind of cuts off mold. It cuts off most of the allergens when we dip down into like December, January. And then also maybe the middle to end of the summertime, before ragweed season and after tree pollen and grass season, you can get a little bit of a lull. But for the most part, we have allergies, any time of the year. A lot of you may be familiar with cedar. So cedar pollen does pop up during the winter months, December, January. And depending on the wind direction, it can really blow in our direction, especially like if we get a west or northwest wind. That's really the only pollen that's a problem, though, during that time of the year is cedar. Sometimes they even call it cedar fever, because people, and not in a good way, not like Pac-Man fever. Cedar fever, like you're going to think that you're sick. Well, I guess you do feel sick, but you're going to think you have an infection. As far as springtime here, from approximately February to May, lots of tree pollens, especially from oak, ash, and pecan trees, become prevalent in our part of Texas. The oak really is what we notice as far as that yellow crud everywhere. Now, I have been sort of corrected, or people have tried to point out to me in the past that if you can see it, then it's too large to get in your nose and cause allergies. That may be true, I don't know. But regardless, when you see the yellow gunk, it's coincident with the microscopic particles that make everybody sick. So that's the season we're in. Now, also brace yourself for grass pollen season. So grass pollens are common from April through September. It's going to be coming up soon. We're in March. It's going to be coming up soon. Ragweed is a fall phenomenon here, beginning in August and going until the first freeze. And then everything kind of gets shut off. Mold can happen really any time of the year, but we are in an especially humid region of the country, as you've probably noticed. Not today, but most days. So that does allow mold to proliferate. The pollen counts that we use come from the City of Houston Health Department. And they take measurements every morning. The measurements come out around mid-morning, 9 o'clock or so. The measurements come in as they're measured in how many grains of pollen per cubic meter. It's really difficult to imagine, but like let's say today's pollen count was like the tree pollen was maybe 500 or 700, something like that. So in a cubic meter, like something this big, there's like 700 particles of tree pollen in there. Well, during the height of the season, it's going to be a few thousand, on the worst days. So that's when it really gets bad. And that certainly could happen later this week or over the next few weeks. So common symptoms here include what you would expect: itchy, watery eyes, sneezing, congestion, sometimes even headaches, and people with asthma can also be affected by it. So the experts say that the best thing you can do to reduce your exposure is to keep your windows closed, of course, and to try to stay indoors as much as you can on days when there are very high allergy levels. Also, they say the doctors recommend that you wash your face when you come home, wash your hands, wash your face, even change clothes when you get home, because the pollen can still be on your clothes when you're outside. So that is what is going on with allergy season. And certainly it's not as bad as hurricane season, but it's one that definitely does bother a lot of people. All right. We talked about the crazy AI videos. We talked about allergies. Next on the list is the lunar eclipse, also known, very scary way, as the blood moon. Makes it sound kind of more impressive than it is, but you've got to figure. So when the moon gets covered by the Earth's shadow, these ancient people thought that like a dragon was eating the moon, or whatever they thought. I don't know, but the moon, you know what I mean? The moon turns red or reddish color, and obviously everybody freaked out. Well, now we know that there's nothing to get concerned about. At least most people do. Nothing to be concerned about. The red is going to be caused by something very similar to why a sunset is red. The light coming from the sun is white. It's made up of all the colors of the rainbow. Red is a long wavelength and blue is a short wavelength. And so blue light has more energy, and because of its frequency and its interaction with the atmosphere, will get scattered. And the only thing that makes it through to the other side is red. So that's why during the day, like right now, it's beautiful blue sky. And right at sunset, the sky can sometimes turn yellow, pink, even red. So it's a similar kind of idea. Now, it's confusing when somebody asks, what day is the lunar eclipse on? Because it's technically during the early morning hours of March 14th, which is Friday. But to most ordinary people, this is going to be Thursday night, like late Thursday night. So we're talking about the best time to view it. Let's see, hold on. I wrote down exactly when it is going to be happening here. I want to make sure I give you that information. Here we go. So for Houston, the event is going to reach its peak at 1:58 a.m. So if you want to consider that early Friday morning, technically it is. Or if you stay up really late, then it'll be obviously Thursday night. So the beginning of what is called the penumbral eclipse is going to start at 10:57 p.m. That is where just the outside kind of minor shadow of the Earth starts to cast a shadow on the moon. The total eclipse begins at 1:26 a.m. So you got to get up real early or stay up really late for that one. The maximum eclipse, where it's, from 1:26 until 2:30, the moon is going to be completely in the Earth's shadow. So really, during any of that time, you'll have a chance to see it. The maximum eclipse happens just before 2 a.m. at 1:58 a.m. And then by 5 a.m. it's completely over. So I always sort of am probably guilty of downplaying lunar eclipses or being a bah humbug on lunar eclipses. And there's a reason why. Because if you think about the moon, like when we see the sun, we always see either the whole sun or none of the sun, meaning like it's either daylight or nighttime. I mean, the only time you see a sliver of the sun would be if you're watching a sunrise or a sunset. But during the day, the only time you're never going to see the full sun is during a total solar eclipse or a partial solar eclipse, but mainly a total solar eclipse. And those kind of things happen like every 50 years or, in any given area. Longer than that, actually. I mean, you remember what a big deal it was. So for us to see the sun block is a huge deal. For us to see the moon, we see moon phases all the time. It's on a 29-day cycle. It's full, and then you see the last quarter moon, and then you can't see the moon, and then the moon starts to get a sliver on its right side, and then it gets bigger and bigger. You know what I mean? So we see all different sizes of the moon being lit. That's why, to me, to see a full moon just kind of get shadowy and get darker is not that thrilling. Some people might find it thrilling. The best thing that can happen for us is that we have a break in the cloud cover, which is going to be iffy. Right now, I'm telling you, it's like a 50-50 shot that we're going to be able to see it with enough breaks in the clouds. The next thing, if you can see it, is that we want it to turn red or at least a copper color. So it's going to be shadowed. If it doesn't really get a color to it, then it's a little bit boring. It just kind of looks like a darker moon. Not like the dark side of the moon, which is different, both in an astronomical sense and in a musical sense. But if it turns red or if it turns copper, then you could say like, hey, oh my gosh, I saw the blood moon. That was pretty cool. Otherwise, it's just a darker moon. I mean, look, you're asking me, would I stay up on purpose super late to see it? I wouldn't. But as they say, you do you, right? I don't want to poo-poo it for anybody. Okay. Which, by the way, if you missed this one, don't despair, because the next total lunar eclipse will happen on March the 3rd, 2026. So next year. 1 year. You only have to wait 1 year. Let's see. Did I get any other interesting tidbits of information? You don't need to wear sunglasses. Don't do that. No special equipment needed unless you want to look at it through a telescope. I'm sure it'd be kind of cool. And blood moons have been seen as omens or significant events in some cultures. But, don't freak out. That's my advice. Don't freak out. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about here, it's getting windy. The last thing I want to talk about here is severe weather. So oak pollen season and tree pollen season also happens to coincide with severe weather season. So as I mentioned before with allergens, we can get high allergy levels any time of the year, although they happen more frequently some times of the year. So we're getting into the busier time of the year for severe weather, including tornadoes. So for example, this is a breakdown of tornadoes frequency from the National Weather Service. Allow me to put my glasses on. All right, so let's compare. So the month this is Texas. So in Texas, the month that we see the fewest number of tornadoes on average is December. Now, we do have December tornadoes, but on average, we only have about 2 in the month of December. January, that's also about 2 to 2.5 on average. We had an EF3 that hit Pasadena, but I'm just saying on average, right? That jumps up to 8 on average in the month of March, jumps up to 15 in April, 39 in May, 21 in June, and then back down to 5 in July. So March, April, May, and June are the 4 months that by far have the most tornado activity. Then there's a second little severe weather season that comes in the fall. That has to do with cold fronts coming in during September, October, even sometimes in November. But March, April, May, June is when things really start ramping up. So why is this? Well, during the wintertime, the jet stream dips very far to the south, which is why Florida actually sees a lot of wintertime tornadoes. February, I believe, is the most frequent month for Florida to see tornadoes because the strongest part of the jet stream is over the far southern part of the United States. And then when it comes to our area, we're looking more at like March, April, North Texas, and traditional tornado alley is going to see a lot in March, April, May. And then by the summer months, tornadoes become a threat in Canada, believe it or not. There have been huge tornadoes up in Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, up north of the Dakotas. They actually can see some very large tornadoes up there in the summertime because that's where the jet stream is really, really far to the north. Minnesota and the Dakotas can see tornadoes as well, very late spring and into the summer. So a lot of it has to do with where the jet stream is. And remember, these are generalities. It doesn't mean that it only happens during that time of the year. But May is the month with the most frequent tornadoes around here, which brings me to the outlook for this week. So we had actually a couple of isolated severe thunderstorms on over this past weekend on Saturday, which was picked up pretty well by the models. And now our Fox model and the GFS and Euro are hinting at some storms north of Houston, again coming up on Wednesday or maybe Wednesday night. So we'd be talking about a lot of the same places like College Station, Huntsville, Livingston, and maybe slightly to the south of that area. So that's what we're going to be watching. Right now, the Storm Prediction Center has a very slight risk in those areas, just a little bit of an elevated risk in those areas coming up on Wednesday. And then we're going to see this pattern repeat, as we progress through March and head in, obviously, to April, May. And even as we get into hurricane season, it's still kind of overlapped with tornado season and with severe weather season here in Texas. So keep an eye out for Wednesday, especially if you live north of Houston. And then probably, once a week or so for the next several weeks, we're going to be watching for some severe weather chances because that's just the way it goes around here for us here in Southeast Texas in severe weather season. So anyway, that'll do it. Don't fall for those weird whale videos. And protect yourself from the allergens if you're really allergic, because I'm telling you, it's going to be like Oakmageddon around here over the next several weeks. I want to thank you very much for joining me here for Mondays with Mike. Remember to tune in for Forecasting with Friends. That's our Monday through Friday weather show each day at 11 a.m. Central Time. Coming up later this week, I'm hoping on Wednesday, I'm going to do an unboxing of my brother Neil got me a it's great for hurricane and storm preparedness. It's like an all-in-one charging platform for like your phone and your watch and like all kind of stuff. If the power goes out, or you can charge it every day, you could use it for every day, but it's a power bank, so when the power goes out. So anyway, JD has reviewed a few of those in the past, so I think I'm going to do an unboxing and show off how proud I am of my gift that I got for my birthday. So anyway, I hope you all have a great day. Shout out to my mom and Neil down in Florida. Hope everything's going well. I know it's windy there today, I believe. So thanks so much for tuning in.